תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיהם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
The middle of page 31. Listen, all you who wrestle with your fate, the infinite and the finite are one. Trust the unity with your whole heart, doubt and all, with your whole soul, and with all the powers at your command. Remember it, repeat it, everywhere, working or resting, sitting or walking, night or morning, alone and with all you love. See it written on your hand, on your brow, in every common place and in every common face. We continue now on page 38. 39. Our sages taught it is proper to mention the exodus from Egypt in our morning prayers and also at night. We celebrate the going out from Egypt in the morning light, full of confidence and vigor as we enter the new day. But in the evening, weary from the day's exertions, cast down and fearful at the coming of night. What can the Exodus teach us then? Our nighttime prayer brings hope and trust in the future. As God did not abandon our people long ago through the long, dark night of exile, so the Holy One will be with us in time to come. To stand by the one you love, that is the true essence of faithfulness, the meaning of emunah. And so it is written in the Psalms, proclaim your kindness in the morning and your faithfulness in the night. Sing with joy in the morning of your life, when light surrounds you and the world seems beautiful and good, and in the evenings of your life, when you dwell in sorrow and the world seems dark. Do not despair. We continue with the Micha Mocha on page 40.
Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef eleh, nora tehilot osef eleh. Malchutecha ma'uvanecha bokei hayam lifnei Moshe, ze Eli anu ve'amru, ze Eli anu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef eleh, nora tehilot osef eleh.
We turn to page 42, and it's my privilege to invite up Harry Friedman to lead us in a prayer for nighttime. Thank you, Harry.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'yamadenu melkeinu l'chaim, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Bless our sleep with peace, Adonai, and awaken us to life when we rise. With power sublime, spread over us your shelter of shalom, and through your wisdom restore us, make us whole. Let your name proclaim your presence in our lives. be our shield. Make us stronger than the enemies we face, illness and war, famine and sorrow, and stronger than the enemies in our hearts, wickedness and sin. Carry us to safety as on wings, for you are the monarch of grace, the sovereign of compassion. You are the one who cares for us and sets us free. Watch over us, we who go forth to life. Watch over us that we may come home in peace, now until the end of time. Baruch atah Adonai, hapres sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. Blessed One, you spread over us a canopy of peace, a shelter of shalom for all Israel, your people, and over Jerusalem. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, we continue now with the Hatzi Kaddish on page 45.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba v'alma devugrach hirotei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei dechol bet Yisrael Bagala u'bizman kariv v'meru amen Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach le'alam u'lalmei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach V'pa'ar, v'roman, v'naseh, v'hadar, v'talel, v'talal, shemei dekudasha, rihu, leila min kol birchata v'shirchata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma, v'meru, amen.
We turn now to page 46. Now, in the spirit of experimentation that our new Siddur inspires in us, on Rosh Hashanah I decided maybe I can take the entire tefillah and sort of chant my way through all the additional inserts that go with the High Holy Days. I can't. So that was a holy failure. And we are going to go back to the tradition we had before, which is that I will read, and we will read together without chanting, until we get to the inserts, which will be sung. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I invite you, if able, to please rise for tefillah. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imoheinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zocher Haskei Avot v'Imaot, Umevi Ua Uvnei Bneihem, L'man Shemo Be'ahava. Go praying.
Zochreinu lechaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chotveinu b'sefer ha'chaim, lemancha Elohim, chaim chem chaim. Zochreinu, Zochreinu, lechaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chotveinu, v'chotveinu, b'sefer ha'chaim, book of life.
Melech Otzer u'Mashiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol atah Rav Hoshia. Mechalchel chayim v'chesed, Mechayeh hakol v'rachamim rabim. Tzomech noflim v'rofeh cholim, u'matir asurim, u'mkayem emunato l'shnei afar. Mi chamocha ba'al givorot, u'mi domeh lach, melech memit u'mchayeh u'matzmiach Yeshua. Mi chamocha el harachamim, zocher yitzurav l'chayim v'rachamim. V'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Page 53. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kyoshim l'kol yom yakalucha sela. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. You are holy, your name is holy, and seekers of holiness praise you every day. Selah. Please be seated, and it's my delight to invite up Jeff Cagle to lead us in prayer.
Okay. And so, in your holiness, give all creation the gift of awe. Turn our fear to reverence. Let us be witness of wonder, perceiving all nature as a prayer come alive. We bow to the sovereignty of your strength, the primacy of your power. We yearn for connection with all that lives, doing your will with wholeness of heart. Awe-inspiring is your creation, all-encompassing your transcendent name.
And now, adopting yet another aspect of another part of our tradition, using the Orthodox tradition that in the evening Amidah, we read silently, I invite you all now to read the rest of the Amidah until you reach page 79, or until we're ready to complete with Oseh Shalom. Shalom Rav, forgive me.
tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, tasim leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon, lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon, lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, tasim leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam.
We continue on page 81 with the Vidui, our confession and slichot. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu tavo lefanecha tefilatenu v'al titalam mihitnatenu anachnu ansei fanim ukshe oref lomar lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu zadikim anachnu v'lo chatanu aval anachnu hatanu. Our God and God of all generations, may our prayers reach your presence. And when we turn to you, do not be indifferent. Adonai, we are arrogant and stubborn, claiming to be blameless and free of sin. In truth, we have stumbled and strayed. We have done wrong. We continue now with Ashamnu.
Ashamnu, Agadnu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu Dofi, Hevi
turn now to the Vidui Rabbah, the long confession. And tonight I ask that we all read them together in English. For these sins, our God, we ask forgiveness. The ways we have wronged you deliberately and by mistake, and the harm we have caused in your world through the words of our mouth. The way we have wronged you by hardening our hearts, and harm we have caused you in your world through careless speech. The ways we have wronged you through lies and deceit, and the harm that we have caused your world through gossip and rumor. The ways we have wronged you by judging others unfairly, and the harm we have caused your world through disrespect for parents and teachers. The ways we have wronged you through insincere apologies, and the harm we have caused in your world by mistreating a friend or neighbor. The ways we have wronged you through violence and abuse, and the harm we have caused in your world through dishonesty in business. V'al kulam, for all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. We continue on page 88. The ways we have wronged you, openly and secretly, and the way we have caused harm in your world by losing self-control. The ways we have wronged you through sexual immorality, and the harm we have caused in your world through consumption, food, and drink. The ways we have wronged you by giving in to our hostile impulses, and the harm we have caused in your world through greed and exploitation. The ways we have wronged you through cynicism and scorn, and the harm we have caused in your world through arrogant behavior. The ways we have wronged you by hating without cause, and the harm we have caused in your world through offensive speech. The ways we have wronged you with a slanderous tongue, and the harm we have caused in your world through a selfish or petty spirit. For all these failures, judgments of will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. V'al kulam.
V'al kulam Eloha slichot Selach lanu mechalanu kaper lanu V'al kulam Eloha slichot Slok lanu mechalanu Selach lanu mechalanu kaper lanu.
It's now my privilege to invite up Molly Marks, and we continue on page 91.
Failures of love. We sin against you when we hurt one another. For our failures of love, Adonai, we seek forgiveness. For exploiting another for our own pleasure, and for the wounds we cause through betrayal and deception. For withholding affection from those we claim to love, and for using love to control our spouses and partners, our children and parents. For abandoning friends and siblings whose love has sustained us, and for neglecting those who love us when they need us the most. For harboring in our relationships mistrust, boredom and disloyalty, and for rejecting your partner's effort at repair and renewal, for possessiveness, jealousy, and avarice, and for lashing out in anger at those who are closest to us.
Who among us is blameless? Who can say, I have not erred, I have not wronged or sinned? We abuse, we brutalize, we covet, we deceive, we enslave, we feud, we gossip, we humiliate, we injure, we judge unfairly, we kill, we lie, we manipulate, we neglect, we ostracize, we plagiarize, we quarrel, we rage, we shame, we turn away, we undermine, we vilify, we waste. We exploit the earth, and we yearn too much for yesterday, and too easily forget Zion. Our sins are an alphabet of woe. Help us, Holy One, to follow your ways of integrity, justice, and love. Teach us to seek forgiveness and humility, and with an open heart. V'al kulam aloha slichot, salach lanu, michal lanu, kaper lanu. For all these wrongs, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, and grant us atonement. I invite you now to turn to page 100. God of forgiveness, we come before you in need of compassion. At Sinai, you spoke words that guide our lives to this day, but our ancestors lost faith in you, lost hope in their Redeemer. With one voice they had promised, we will do and we will obey. And yet, stiff-necked, they broke their word, adoring an idol of gold. How wondrous your compassion in the face of their rebellion, your forgiveness that in that moment of human weakness and doubt, we too have broken promises to you. We too worship the work of our own hands. We too make a gold of a god, and we too forsake your word. At Sinai, you revealed 13 attributes of mercy. These attributes of your nature, your very essence, we invoke them and recall them now. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Charnun, Arach Apayim v'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed v'Alafim, Nosei Avon Ufesha v'Chata'at v'Nakeh. Adonai, Adonai, God, compassionate, gracious, endlessly patient, loving, and true, showing mercy to the thousandth generation, forgiving evil, defiance, wrongdoing, and pardon. Together on page 101. As parents show tenderness to their children, may you show mercy to those who worship you. Like the heavens that tower above the earth, your love is powerful for those who revere you. Liberation is a gift from God, a blessing upon your people. You are the God of all we can perceive, our heaven, the God of Yaakov, and you are the God of all that is beyond our perception. The one who has faith in you is fortunate. Sovereign God, show us the way to freedom. Answer us on this day of our calling out to you. Moses prayed to God, as you have been faithful to this people ever since Egypt, please forgive their failings now, in keeping with your boundless love. And God responded, I forgive as you have asked. We turn now to page 105. In all your ways, be aware of God, for there is no sovereign without a people. Ein melech below Am. We are the chariot on which God's glory rides, for there is no sovereign without a people. Let the love of God be spread through our deeds, for there is no sovereign without a people. You are my servant, Israel. I will be glorified through you, for there is no sovereign without a people. Where is God? Anywhere we let in, for there is no sovereign without a people. Ein melech below Am. Eternal God, you revealed to Moses your 13 attributes of mercy. They exist in the world through our awareness. They transform the world through our actions, and we speak them as prayer and aspiration. Together in English. Adonai, Adonai, God, compassionate, gracious, endlessly patient, loving, and true, showing mercy to the thousandth generation, forgiving evil, defiance, wrongdoing, and granting pardon. We now turn to page 112, and I invite you to rise for Avinu Malkeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Kamo Aleinu, Ve'ol Aleinu, V'tapeinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kale Dever, V'cherev Rav, Me Aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kale Kotzar, Umastin, Me Aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Kodvenu, V'sefer Chaim Tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, Chodesh Aleinu, Chodesh Aleinu, Shana Tova. Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Va'anenu, Ki ein banu, ein banu Masim. Aseh imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed, v'hoshi'enu. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu.
Page 114. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, hear our voice. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, we strayed and sinned before you. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu, Va'al Olaleinu, V'tapenu. Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and on our families. Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Dever V'cherev V'rav Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger. Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Kol Saru Mastin Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror. Avinu Malkeinu, Kotvenu V'sefer Chaim Tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of life well lived. Avinu Malkeinu, Kadesh Aleinu, Shana Tova. Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us the year of goodness. Avinu Malkeinu, Malal Yadenu, Mibirchotecha. Avinu Malkeinu, let our hands overflow with your blessings. Avinu Malkeinu, Karen Keren Vishicheta. Avinu Malkeinu, let our eyes behold the dawn of redemption. Avinu Malkeinu, Na'al Tishvenu, Rekim Milifanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, we pray, do not turn away from you, nothing. Avinu Malkeinu, Kabel Rachamim Ufratzon et Tefilatenu. Avinu Malkeinu, welcome our prayer with love, acceptance, and embrace it. Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh Imanu Laman Shmecha. Avinu Malkeinu, act towards us as befits your name. Avinu Malkeinu, aseh lemancha im lo ma'asnenu. Avinu Malkeinu, act for your sake, if not for ours. Avinu Malkeinu, ein lanu melech ela ata. Avinu Malkeinu, you alone are sovereign. Avinu Malkeinu, patach sha'arei shemayim tfilatenu. Avinu Malkeinu, let the gates of heaven be open to our prayers. Avinu Malkeinu, shema kolenu, hus barachem aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voice, treat us with tender compassion. Avinu Malkeinu, kodnenu v'anenu, ki ein banu masim, aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshiinu. Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love. Please be seated. Well, as I think I told you on Rosh Hashanah, that originally I had all of these sermons prepared for the end of COVID. And it were going to be a series of eulogies for the things we lost over the year. And then around July, I realized COVID wasn't going away. So my sermons were a little premature. So I decided that what we needed was sermons that were based on something positive, something uplifting. What's great about Judaism? And I turned to a book called Judaism's 10 Great Ideas by Rabbi Arthur Green, and I based all of my sermons on that. And then about a week ago, I noticed an oddity. And that is that having written these sermons, despite my effort to be uplifting, that at least two of the sermons make reference to the world to come. In other words, what happens to us after we die. And that made me sort of ponder that something a little dark had crept back into my sermons. And so I was trying to figure out why that was. And now I know. And I'm going to tell you the story of that. All right. So towards the end of vacation, when we could fly, my son Avi and I decided we were going to do a lightning trip to Los Angeles. And so we flew, and the plan was we were going to do everything cinematic. Right, we were going to go to all of the studios, and then we were going in between the time I was going to take him around to iconic locations where movies had been made. So we went to the Santa Monica Pier, we went to the Griffith Observatory, and we went to one of my favorite places, Bradbury Building down in Hollywood. All right, the Bradbury Building has been the site of about a dozen different important films. That elements of it were shot in there. But the most important one is my favorite science fiction movie of all times, which is Blade Runner. And in Blade Runner, the climactic scene, the story is the story about these cyborgs called replicants who are turned into virtual slaves. They're better than human beings in every respect, except they only get to live 4 years. And so every once in a while, some of them will break from the outer world's attempt to come to Earth and try and find the technology necessary to extend their lives. And in order to prevent these slaves from running loose, they have these policemen called Blade Runners, whose job it is to hunt them down. And so in the climactic scene, we find ourselves, Deckard, the Blade Runner, and Roy Blatty, the replicant leader who has come back, are in this intense confrontation, but it quickly becomes clear that Deckard is completely overwhelmed. Instead of being the hunter, he becomes the hunted. And what happens next is throughout the building of the Bradbury Building, he is pursued relentlessly by Roy Batty, who is, knowing that his life is ending very quickly, is seeking his revenge. And the two of them end up on the roof, and Deckard decides he has to try and leap from one building to another. He attempts to do it, and he fails. And of course, he ends up where every Hollywood hero ends up, dangling by his hands at the edge of the building. And Roy Batty shows up holding a dove, of all things, and just effortlessly leaps from one building to another and towers over Deckard as Deckard struggles vainly to hang on. And then, just as Deckard is about to let go and lose his grip and fall to his death, Roy Batty reaches out and with tremendous strength lifts him up and just sets him on the roof. And then Roy Batty sits down, dove in hand, in front of Deckard, and he says what may be the greatest death speech ever, at least as far as I'm concerned. It's Rutger Hauer delivers it, and he says, "I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched C-beams glitter in the dark near the Tannenhauer Gate. All these moments will be lost in time, like tears in the rain. Time to die." And like that, his programming ends. He dies, and he releases the dove in his hand, which of course symbolizes the liberation of his soul. Fantastic scene. Why am I telling you this? Okay, so there I am with Avi. We're looking at the Bradbury building, and lo and behold, suddenly, I have the most excruciating pain in my chest. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And it just keeps accelerating. It gets worse and worse. And, you know, I'm a trained nurse, and something I do really well in a crisis, which is nothing. All right? You know, I don't know, if someone's bleeding or someone falls, I just jump right into action. But if I'm confronted with something I don't understand, I do nothing. I stand there and I think about it. So here I am, this excruciating pain, and I'm going through a little checklist in my head. Well, it's not crushing pain, it's like a stabbing pain. But none of these Japanese tourists have stabbed me, right? And it's radiating down my arm, but it feels like a nerve pain. It doesn't feel like what you would expect for someone who has angina. And I'm not sweating, and I'm not short of breath, so I don't think I'm having a cardiac event. But this is really, really painful. And so the thought does occur to me, I'm going to die right here in front of the Bradbury building. So I realize I have two choices, right? I could either give Roy Batty's speech to the Japanese tourists assembled there, or I can find an urgent care center, which I immediately do, and I find there's one 3 blocks away, and I say, Avi, something's going wrong. I need to go to an urgent care center. He immediately says, should I call Mom? And I say, absolutely not. Let me figure out what's going on first, and we'll go. So we drive around, and we end up at the urgent care center. In my nursey way, I sort of go through my list of what I think might be going on. And the doctor, unlike most doctors, actually listens to me. So she runs an EKG to sort of, rule out the cardiac thing. And I've got a normal sinus rhythm, so that's not what's going on. So then we review some of the other theories I have for why I'm having this pain. And she then gives me a little solution for each of them and says, hopefully this will ease that and finish your trip and see this person and that person when you get back. Okay, I'm great. All right. But I did have a moment when I thought I might die. I didn't know why, but it was kind of odd, and I think that's why I'm thinking about this. But at this point, it's all worked out very well. And I'm here speaking to you, so I don't know what it is. I'm still seeing doctors about it. I got a neurologist working on my neck. I've got a gastroenterologist working on my GERD. Who knows what it is? But I'm feeling fine. So now I come to the weird Jewish afterlife part that began my sermon, all right? So, and I think this is why I ended up thinking about this. When we arrive in the world to come, the Jewish version of heaven, The Talmudic sages wondered, what will God ask of us? This is really not a question about heaven or the afterlife. It's really a question, as the Jewish questions tend to be, about how we live and how we locate eternity in life, in our living moments. The philosopher Franz Rosenzweig explained that on Yom Kippur, we are offered a look at our lives through the eyes of eternity. From that perspective, what have we amounted to? What's real? What's our priorities? What should be our priorities? What matters? According to the story, according to the Talmudic sages, God will ask us a couple of questions. Katava itim leTorah. Did you set about some time for studying Torah? As I say on a regular basis, Torah is not only the scroll in the ark, Torah is really a process. Torah is the ongoing conversation that we have among generations of Jewish thinkers and Jewish dreamers, starting at Sinai up to this day, sharing their interpretation of life's true purpose, God's intention and God's presence, of life's value and beauty. When we study Torah, we join in that conversation. Writing about life in nature, Lewis Thomas, the biology writer, noted that there is no such thing as an ant. There is no ant. An ant is merely one component of a larger whole. If a distinct component, it is part of a large ecosystem known as ants. A colony, ants of the past, ants of the future, and as it is in nature, so too it is in Torah. There is no such thing, really, as a Jew. Jews come along with ancestors and descendants, a community that spans generation. What binds us together is our shared multi-generational wisdom, our Torah. You know, if the ants are sprinkling around little smelly pheromones, we're sprinkling the smelly pheromone of Torah to each other. To learn Torah is to enter into an eternal quest, the eternal Jewish conversation. So God asks, Katava itim leTorah, did you find some time to study Torah? And the next question the Talmud tells us is, Na'asa b'emunah, did you do your business faithfully with integrity? Now, this on the surface seems to be a surprising shift. We expect questions about Torah, about devotion to God. Also what we might expect, maybe a question about tzedakah, about charity, about ritual, about, our faith. Instead, this question suggests something completely different. Do you do business with integrity? Immortality, it seems to suggest, is found in the mundane world of our everyday actions. But this, too, the sages tell us, is Torah. Because in my study, in my den, over my breakfast table, in my own deepest thoughts, while I'm studying Torah, I'm the moral hero of my story. It's easy to be a moral hero in theory. It's easy to think, oh, when confronted with that thing, that emergency, that moment, I will always do the right thing. But deep in our hearts, maybe we shouldn't be so sure. We all think we are good, decent people. When a moment of crisis comes, when a decision needs to be made, we think we will do it right, whatever the cost it might be. The question is, what happens in the real world, not only in the world of our imagination, not only in the world of our big choices, but our small ones, in the marketplace, in business, in a world of competition, in the classroom, in our relations on a day-to-day basis with our parents and our children, our petty conflicts and our passing passions. Robin has the grocery store parking lot test, and that test is, will you return the cart to the corral, or will you rush on to the next thing? Na'asa b'emunah, are you a mensch when it counts? Do we apply Torah even when no one else is looking? when it may not seemingly matter? Do we do it on a day-to-day, everyday basis? How often do we earn our livelihood just at the tiny expense of others, just at our own convenience, at their inconvenience? Does Torah really matter, or is it just a hobby? Nasata be'emunah, are you faithful to the best in yourself? Do you apply Torah under the worst of circumstances and simply the vexing of circumstances? Indeed, Talmud Torah is one of Judaism's best ideas. Not only, perhaps not even primarily, the study of our ancient text, the book itself that's in the scroll, but the whole tradition, the idea and the application, the very way of life that has developed over millennia of interpreting this Torah. This summer at our Torah and Tefillah, where we study Torah, and it's a pivotal part of what we do on Saturday morning, it became clear in the book of Deuteronomy that Moses retells the story of the Israelite people. It's very repetitive, but it's not exactly the same as the story that appears in earlier books. He is already reinterpreting, and in doing so, he's giving all future generations permission to understand the Torah for ourselves and our own time. Someone at the time commented that Moses was the first Reformed Jew because he's sort of making it up as he goes along. Perhaps another way to put it is that Reform is yet another link in a long chain of what Rabbi Arthur Green calls creative reading or even intentional misreading of Torah. He tells the story of leaving his house to teach a class of rabbinical students, and he writes, "On the way to my car, I noticed a pickup truck with a bumper sticker that said, 'God said it, I believe it, that settles it.' I walked into class and I said to my students, 'That is not a Jewish bumper sticker. Our bumper sticker would read, "God said it, I believe it, let's talk about what it means.'" I believe this, more than anything else, defines who Jews are, not only in relationship to our Torah, but how we relate to everything in life. How many different ways can we understand a single moment? How can we find meaning in the seemingly meaningless and rote and ordinary? How can we dig deeper to reveal what lies beneath the surface of what happens to us? Rabbi Green also has an interesting thinking on what defines us as Jews. We all argue about who is a Jew and what makes us a Jew. He states, "If you were to ask me what single precept of Judaism is the one to which Jews feel the greatest commitment, I would answer without hesitation, you shall teach them to your children." The command to pass on tradition and knowledge from generation to generation. Unlike many cultures that pass on land and territory to descendants, the Jews who were exiled, often expelled from places where we lived, the only thing we had to pass on was our knowledge and our tradition. Rabbi Green points out that for most of Jewish history, the knowledge being passed on was Jewish knowledge. But the modern era Jews, we've broadened ourselves, our love of learning and passion for education in endless secular fields. The irony is that as Jews, we've become integrated into this society. And however, efforts to pass on Jewish education are becoming less and less successful. Rabbi Green also notes in the ongoing achievements of Jews in secular learning, alongside the time limitations of Jewish supplementary education, has led to an unacceptable disparity in American Jewish life between the levels of our general intellectual sophistication and even the most basic forms of Jewish knowledge. This is an ongoing challenge for us. And Rabbi Green concludes that section by saying, "I have devoted much of my life to educating a leadership for American Jewry for the 21st century, a generation of rabbis who will be able to provide contemporary and compelling answers to the questions, why do we care? Why should we make an effort to pass this tradition forward?" Now, that in a small thing is what my job is too. The answers, I feel, vary depending on the person asking and the time in which it is asked. But seeking the answers throughout our own life, that is the great Jewish reward. That is what brings eternity into our lives right now. Returning to God's question, I think the reward has always been and will always remain, well, we become immortal. We are reminded immortality is not found after death, beyond the grave, or in some imagined heaven. It is in our hearts, in the way we live, in the daily tasks of life. As we will read tomorrow, we will say, it is not too far from you. It is in your hand and in your mouth to do it. Don't look beyond the stars. There's no need to stretch your neck. God is right here, filling all existence with endless bounty. Look around you. Look within. Open your eyes. Find God's presence in each and every creature and in every unified, transforming vision of all that is. That's what it means to belong to the Jews, to the people Israel, to the people who struggle with God and struggle with God's words. We engrave immortality in our hearts when we study Torah and we teach Torah to our children. So in the coming hours, as we observe this Yom Kippur, I want you to ask yourself this question. This year, can you find some time to study Torah, time to do Torah, and time to take what you learn and apply it in a day-to-day basis so that you may have eternity planted within you, not after you die, not when you're confronted with your morality, with your mortality, but right now, in this moment, can you taste immortality in who you are and what you do on a day-to-day basis? Shana Tova, everyone. So, I think it's my job to give announcements, just to let you know what's happening for the rest of Yom Kippur. We will have a children's service at 9 o'clock, and Casey is conducting that, and she does a marvelous job. So if you're an adult and you're already up and it's 9 o'clock and you have nothing else to do, come and see Miss Casey do her Torah. It's pretty awesome. But if you have children, youngsters, even more so, bring them and let them taste Torah as taught at a level that they can understand. It's wonderful. Then at 10 o'clock, our service, morning service will begin. We will have a Torah reading, which will then conclude our service, and we will take a few moments to take a break. Those of you who need to go home can go home. The rest of us will continue with the afternoon service, the reading of Jonah, always a classic, and of course Pam Feldman is going to be conducting that, so it's really a treat. It really is amazing to do that. And then we'll take a break, and you can study Torah at home. Look at this wonderful Machzor. It's full of all kinds of wonderful teachings from our tradition. And then we'll be regathering around 6 o'clock, where we'll have Yizkor. It will be a unique and new Yizkor service as found in our new prayer book. I think you'll find it compelling. And then we'll shift almost immediately to Ne'ilah, to the closing of the gates as the sun sets. And of course, please bring your shofar. Break it out, use it, come. It's the last blast at the end. We'll do a Havdalah, and the day will draw to a close, and we will bask in forgiveness. So, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning and continuing this sacred conversation. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to please turn to page 116. And if you are able, please rise. If not, rise in spirit. Aleinu, page 116. Ladies and gentlemen, be seated. Page 118. And so, Adonai, our God, we look to you, hoping soon to behold the splendor of your power revealed, a world free of idolatry and false gods, a world growing more perfect through divine governance, a world in which all human beings make known your name, while those who do evil turn to you. We turn to page 121, preparing for the prayer of memory. This holy night concludes with memory. Our last thoughts always are of those we have lost. We miss them especially tonight, yearning for their presence at our side. The service we have shared once was theirs. They spoke and sang the ancient words. They prayed, repented, and yearned for better lives, as we have done. Flawed in their deeds, imperfect in their faith, they still drew strength from their tradition as we seek fortitude in ours. What was good and beautiful in their lives once gave us joy and now inspires us to reach higher. The knowledge that they loved us deeply brings comfort to our hearts. And so we light candles of remembrance and gratitude, and we speak this timeless truth. Zikaronam livracha. Their memory is a blessing, now and forever. We pray that their goodness will live on in our lives, planting seeds of kindness and hope for generations. Please rise for the Hatzi Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, bagalal uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mivarach le'elam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shmei d'kudsha b'richu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, tameran be'elma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace bestow peace on all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated. Page 125, the teaching of our sages. Adonai is my light and my help, and so it is written, your word is a lamp to my feet, a light for my path. There are some who stumble in darkness like wanderers lost in the night, but those who carry love and study your words, they carry a torch in the darkness. They see the dangers, and they do not fall. Adonai is my light. This refers to Rosh Hashanah, called Yom Hadin, the day of judgment, the time of truth, and so it is written, God will let your righteousness shine forth like the light, and the justice of your cause like the noonday sun. Adonai is my help. This refers to Yom Kippur, the holy day when God helps us to atone and forgives our sins. On this atonement night, I pray, let the goodness within me shine forth as I struggle to overcome my flaws. Let me find forgiveness and peace, so may I journey from darkness and confusion to clarity and light. And so may I learn not to fear. And now we're going to conclude this evening's service with Hashkivenu. May you return us again, Adonai, to the land of our soul, to the place we once were.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'amidenu malkeinu l'chayim. Ufiros aleinu sukat shelomecha, betakinenu betzatova melefanecha, behoshienu lema'an shemecha.
Return again, return again. Return to the land of your soul. Return to what you are. Return to who you are. Return to where you are, born and reborn again. Gemar Hatima Tova. May you all be sealed for a good year on this day. Good Yontif, everyone.